Hi guys, it's Zach, and I'm going to be talking about the schema theory. So I'll start off with a question. Have you ever wondered how different athletes, or how athletes are able to make these miraculous plays, how their bodies are able to, maneuver, and how they're able to adapt to all these different conditions, whether weather, different, reaction to a ball, or just how they're able to adapt, and their movements are so flexible, and every movement they do just seems so easy. Um, you ever wondered how how these skills are learned? The schema theory will hopefully answer some of them questions that you may or may not have had. Um, I think the schema theory gives us an explanation of how we learn and do different motor skills. It's going to give us some insights into the human movement, and how it becomes so flexible and adaptable with their movements. I want to get into the different origins of the schema theory, different concepts of motor programs and generalized motor programs. Talk about the role of the invariant features and parameters for shaping our movement, and look at the concept of schema itself and its significance to our motor learning. Um, so, schema theory came about with Richard Schmidt in the late 1970s. Sorry, just reading some of my notes. Late 1970s, and it came about as a sort of response to some limitations to traditional motor program theories. Um, those traditional theories tend to have struggled for to take into account certain flexibilities and adaptabilities when it comes to human movement, and Schmidt was able to develop a theory that explained how people learn and how they perform different motor skills um, within a variety of different areas and contexts. Um, Human movement is not a rigid pre-programmed sequence of actions. Um, it's a little mouthful there. Um, it's, it's actually a dynamic process that requires constant adaptation to changing conditions. So, like we mentioned earlier, how we wonder how athletes are able to adapt to different changing environments and conditions. Schema theory answers that. It's a dynamic process. Schema theory it offers sort of a framework for how we can understand that as well. Different motor programs. These it offers. We talked about motor programs and generalized motor programs. These are pre-structured plans for action stored in long-term memory. They provide a sort of blueprint, so to say, for specific movements. Different movements. Not only just running or swimming. It's more of manipulative skills like throwing, kicking, different sort of stuff. And generalized motor programs, or some people say GMPs, are more flexible versions of motor programs. They provide a general framework for a class of actions, allowing for variations in parameters. I have an analogy down that generalized motor programs are like a recipe. It's a basic recipe, while specific ingredients and cooking times are the parameters that can be adjusted. So I thought it was pretty cool. When I was researching, read some about, found that analogy. I thought it was pretty cool. We talked earlier. I mentioned the invariant features. These are characteristics of a movement that remain constant across variations. They provide a core structure of movements. Sort of examples could be like relative timing, relative force, sequence of action. Relative timing being a temporal structure of the movement, such as the rate such as the ratio of duration in different places. Relative force is the ratio of forces produced by different muscle groups. And the sequence of action is obviously the order in which these actions occur. Talked about the parameters. Parameters are a flexible component of a movement that can be adjusted to fit different situations. Kind of talked about, what is happening and what environment we're put in, whether that be with something like weather, whether that be, in terms of athletes, like home field advantage. If you're in a very loud environment, it's different what you're used to. So different parameters and what you're put into. Another example could be overall duration of a movement, the overall force you're being forced to put in movement, and specific muscles that are involved in the movement. Schema is get into schema theory. It is schema, more not the theory, but more of what schema means, and the concept of schema is a mental representation of a class of actions. It includes information about invariant features, parameters, and sensory consequences of movement. Schemas allow us to adapt, improve, and make predictions about outcomes of our actions. I found some research about this in a couple different studies that show that experienced athletes can adjust their movements to compensate for changing environments. So, sorry, I'm getting lost in my notes here. There I am. The schema theory provides us a powerful framework for understanding how we learn, execute motor skills. It highlights the importance of flexibility, adaptations, and the role of mental representation in shaping our movements. The schema theory has significant implications for sports training, rehabilitation, and human-computer interaction. I keep getting lost, sorry. Trying to get my notes. There. There we go. So, when we learn to understand these different mechanisms of motor learning, we can learn to develop a more effective training program and a rehabilitation strategy. So anytime you witness another skilled athlete doing something seemingly effortless, doing something so easy, you're like, how does that even happen? How did we do that? Now you know what kind of theory went into that in order for that athlete to perform that skill, and you can have more of an appreciation for the schema theory, and you can gain a deeper understanding of human potential in movement and learning. I want to mention some of my research. I gotta go and find what studies and stuff I found. I gotta go scroll to where I was. Sorry about this. I will provide my resources below on my under this link for this video. I thought I had it pulled up. I guess I closed out of it too quickly. But I will provide those so that way you can see where I got some of this information from, and I appreciate it. And again, it's actually a pretty cool concept, researching the schema theory and understanding how movement really works and how athletes are able to move with such ease. When you're watching them, whether in person or on TV, I think it was cool to research. And I'm very excited to listen to some of y'all's videos about dynamic systems. So thank you for watching.